Welcome back, everybody. Today, we're going to be doing a deep dive into something pretty fascinating.
Yeah.
We've got this Korean news article
Okay.
that analyzes a recent speech by Jerome Powell,
Right.
and it's all about how global economic uncertainty is impacting the Fed's decisions on interest rates.
You know, it's really interesting to get this outside perspective
Right.
on how the U.S. economy is viewed,
Yeah.
and particularly how people are looking at the Fed's actions
Mm-hmm.
from a global perspective.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay, so
Yeah.
Powell, from what I understand of this article,
Mm-hmm.
is advocating for a wait-and-see approach.
Right.
But this is not just your typical,
Yeah.
like, this is market fluctuate.
Way more complicated
Right.
than that because...
So what is it about this situation?
Well, it's interesting because Powell's like advocating for patience,
Hmm.
and it really stems from the fact
Yeah.
that they're trying to figure out what the long-term impact of Trump's policies will be.
Oh, wow.
You know, he's got kind of a multi-pronged approach to policy, right?
Mhm.
So we're dealing with the trade wars,
Yeah.
the tax cuts, the increase in government spending.
Wow, so many different things.
There are also shifts in immigration policy,
Yeah.
regulatory changes, all of these.
It's like trying to predict the weather, but you've got a dozen different forecasts.
Exactly.
Yeah, and they're all pointing in different directions.
It's really tough to make sense of it all.
So, like, on the one hand, you've got economists saying that tariffs are going to push prices up,
Right.
and that's going to slow growth.
Right.
But then at the same time,
Hmm.
you've got the potential for the tax cuts and the deregulation to boost the economy.
Right. It's like these two competing forces.
So how's the Fed supposed to even navigate this?
It's a delicate balancing act.
Yeah.
You know, if they
Yeah.
make one wrong move, they could stifle growth,
Right.
or they could end up with runaway inflation.
Oh, wow.
So they've really got to walk this tightrope.
Right.
And I think Powell's wait-and-see approach is really all about separating the signal from the noise.
Oh, okay. I see. So speaking of separating the signal from the noise,
Yeah.
the article also mentions this thing called the Beige Book.
Right.
And it's saying that the Beige Book is reflecting heightened uncertainty.
Yeah.
What exactly is the Beige Book?
So think of it as like
Yeah.
a pulse check on the ground.
Okay.
What the Fed does is they go out and they gather like anecdotal evidence from
Yeah.
businesses all over the country
Oh, okay.
to get a sense of what the economic mood is like in real time.
Okay.
So, you know, even if like the recent jobs report looks good on paper,
Mm-hmm.
the Beige Book might tell a different story
Got it.
by suggesting that businesses are feeling nervous
Yeah.
about the future.
So, like, we're getting
Exactly.
almost conflicting signals,
Yeah.
even from within the U.S. economy.
There's a lot of mixed signals out there.
And on top of all of that,
Yeah,
we've got this whole question of interest rate cuts.
right.
The article mentioned that some traders
Yeah.
actually, like, scale back their predictions for rate cuts
Mm-hmm.
after Powell's speech.
It's interesting.
So are rate cuts even on the table at this point?
Well, it's a really tricky situation
Okay.
because rate cuts, they can be a double-edged sword.
Okay.
Sometimes they signal like a bad news scenario.
Right.
You know, the economy's slowing down.
Yeah.
The Fed needs to do something to stimulate growth.
Okay.
But other times, rate cuts can actually be a good news indicator.
Okay.
It can reflect controlled inflation,
Okay.
which actually allows for more economic activity.
So it's like Powell is almost trying to, like, thread a needle here.
I think that's a great analogy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He needs to signal confidence to prevent panic,
right.
but he also has to be honest.
Yeah,
about his
it's
challenges.
a very delicate balance.
Yeah, because, you know, if people expect prices to just, like, skyrocket,
Right.
then they might start
Absolutely.
hoarding goods
Yes.
and demanding higher wages.
Yeah.
And it'll just make the problem even worse.
You get into this whole self-fulfilling prophecy
Yeah.
when it comes to inflation expectations.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just about prices going up.
Right.
It's about whether people think prices will keep rising.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
Yeah.
where I think this Korean perspective
Yeah.
is so fascinating
Yeah.
because they're watching how Powell's words are being interpreted
Yeah.
globally, you
Mhm.
know? And remember when Trump imposed tariffs
Yeah,
during his previous term?
right.
Well, the Fed eventually had to cut rates
Yeah,
because the economy weakened so much.
right.
Could that happen again?
Yeah.
I mean, it's certainly possible.
Well, the article did mention that Governor Waller sees a possibility for good news cuts
Right.
later in the year.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
maybe the Fed is leaving the door open a crack
Mhm.
just in case.
Yeah.
But wouldn't that risk fueling inflation?
Well, that is the risk.
Yeah.
And Powell actually specifically voiced concerns about these tariff-driven price hikes.
Right.
If these tariffs become like a sustained thing, or if they expand them, it could really worsen the whole inflation situation.
Right.
So it's this delicate balance between, trying to control inflation in the short term and keeping the economy growing in the long term.
And this is where it kind of hits home for everyone listening.
That affects you at the grocery store, at the gas pump, when you're making big purchases.
Right.
Those seemingly small price increases can really add up over time.
Yeah, for sure.
And inflation basically erodes your purchasing power. It makes it harder to afford the things that you need and the things that you want.
Yeah.
And if inflation expectations become unanchored, meaning that people lose faith in the Fed's ability to control prices, then you can end up in the spiral of rising prices and wages.
So they're not just managing actual inflation, they're also managing...
They're managing people's perception.
Perceptions, exactly.
Yeah.
And the Korean perspective here reminds us that this isn't just a domestic issue. What the Fed does has global consequences.
For sure.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's a big deal.
Yeah. It really does make you wonder if we're heading into uncharted territory here.
Yeah.
And the article even mentions that when Trump imposed tariffs during his previous administration, the Fed actually ended up having to cut rates because economic growth just weakened so much.
Yeah.
Could that happen again? I mean, it's definitely a possibility.
Right.
And, that historical precedent is a key factor in why the Fed is taking this wait-and-see approach now.
Yeah.
But, we've been talking about how every economic situation is kind of unique and all the different variables at play this time around.
Right.
The ongoing trade war, the impact of the tax cuts, just the general level of political uncertainty.
Yeah.
All of that creates a very different context than what we saw even just a few years ago.
So it's like they're trying to predict the future.
Yeah.
But they're kind of looking in the rearview mirror at the same time.
In a way.
Yeah.
Yeah. That sounds...
I mean, it's not quite that simple.
Yeah.
The Fed has a whole arsenal of, tools and data that they use.
Right.
But you're right.
Yeah.
Predicting the economic future
it's got to be.
Is inherently an uncertain business.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes.
Speaking of uncertainty, one of the key factors that the Fed is watching really closely right now is inflation expectations.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. The article mentioned that long-term inflation expectations seem to be pretty stable.
Right.
But there was some concern about short-term expectations.
Right.
So what's the difference there, and why does it matter?
Think of it this way.
Okay.
Long-term inflation expectations are like the underlying current of the economy.
Okay.
They reflect people's fundamental beliefs about how prices will behave over the long haul.
Okay.
Short-term expectations, on the other hand,
Yeah.
are more like the waves on the surface. They can be choppy.
Right.
They can be influenced by immediate events.
Like if the price of oil suddenly spiked.
Exact, or in this case, concerns about tariffs.
So people are basically worried that prices might jump up in the short term because of tariffs.
In the short term, yeah. But they're not necessarily convinced that inflation is going to become like a runaway train in the long term.
Okay.
So they're watching both.
So the Fed's paying attention to both.
Yeah, they are. Those stable long-term expectations give the Fed a little bit of breathing room.
Yeah.
But those rising short-term expectations are definitely like a yellow flag for them.
Because if those start feeding into the long-term expectations.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That could signal a loss of confidence in the Fed's ability to actually keep prices under control.
And then that's when things could really spiral.
Exactly.
It's like what we were talking about before.
Yeah.
If people lose faith in the system,
right,
they might start hoarding goods and demanding higher wages and making riskier investments. It becomes like a...
Yeah, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's a scenario that the Fed is definitely trying to avoid.
Right.
And I think that's why they're putting so much emphasis on communication and transparency right now.
They're trying to be like...
by explaining their thought process, explaining their assessment of the economic outlook, they're hoping that they can maintain public trust and keep those inflation expectations from spiraling out of control.
So it's kind of a communications tightrope as well.
It is. Yeah. It is. They
have to be honest about the challenges,
right,
but they can't spook the markets.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And remember, this Korean news source offers a unique perspective on how these messages are being received and interpreted by the rest of the world. What might seem like a minor policy tweak to us here, or even just like a subtle shift in tone from the Fed, can have huge consequences for global markets.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's a good reminder that the U.S. economy doesn't exist in a bubble.
No, it does.
What happens here has ripple effects across the globe.
It does.
But before we get too lost in like the global picture, let's bring it back to our listeners for a second.
Okay.
Like, what are some of the key things that people should be watching for in the coming months?
I'd say keep an eye on...
to gauge how this is all playing out.
Those key economic indicators that we've been talking about.
Okay.
You know, inflation, unemployment, GDP growth. Those are like the vital signs of the economy.
Yeah.
And they can really give you a sense of whether things are, you know, heating up, cooling down, or staying relatively stable.
So it's like checking your own pulse, but for like the entire economy.
I like that analogy. That's a good one.
Okay, cool.
And then beyond those like headline numbers, you know, pay attention to what the Fed is saying and doing.
Okay.
Their statements, their announcements, especially anything related to interest rate decisions. Yeah. Those are like windows into their thinking.
Okay.
They can give you really valuable insights into their assessment of the economy and what their future policy intentions are.
Okay. And speaking of the Fed's policy intentions, I'm curious to get your take on the possibility of those good news rate cuts that Governor Waller mentioned.
Right.
If inflation is a concern, wouldn't cutting rates just add fuel to the fire?
Well, that's the dilemma that the Fed is facing.
Yeah.
You know, rate cuts can stimulate economic growth, which is generally a good thing.
Right.
But they can also make it easier for inflation to take hold.
Right.
So if the Fed does decide to cut rates later this year, it'll be a very calculated move.
Right.
Probably in response to clear signs that the economy is actually weakening and needs a boost.
So it sounds like they're trying to walk this very fine line.
They are. It's a tough job.
Between supporting growth,
right,
but keeping inflation in check.
Yeah.
And all of this is happening against this backdrop of just global uncertainty and interconnectedness.
Absolutely.
It's a lot to keep track of.
It is. It is. A lot going on.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground so far in this deep dive.
We have.
We've explored the Fed's wait-and-see approach, the potential impact of all these competing economic forces, the threat of inflation, and these mixed signals that we're getting from the economy.
It's a lot to digest.
Yeah. But in the final part of our deep dive, kind of want to get even more specific.
All right.
How might all of this actually play out in our listeners' everyday lives?
Sure.
What does it mean for their wallets, their jobs, their futures?
All right.
So stick with us.
Yeah.
Because we're about to get personal. Okay, so we've covered a lot in this deep dive.
Yep.
The Fed's wait-and-see approach, tariffs, tax cuts, that whole thing.
Right.
The threat of inflation and all those like mixed signals coming from the economy.
A lot of uncertainty.
But let's bring it all home.
Okay.
What does this actually mean for our listeners?
Yeah, that's the big question.
Yeah.
You know, if we zoom out and look at the big picture, it's really about understanding how these massive economic forces actually trickle down and affect your everyday life.
Right.
Like, for instance, remember those consumer sentiment surveys we talked about?
Yeah.
Well, even if people are feeling really pessimistic about the economy, they might still be out there spending money.
Okay.
Which could actually help to keep things going for a while.
So it's like this psychological tug of war.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. Between how people are feeling and what they're actually doing with their money.
Yeah. And that's why it's so hard to predict how this is going to play out.
It really is.
Yeah. Let's try to gain it out a little bit.
Okay.
Let's say the economy slows down significantly.
Right.
What could that look like for the average person?
Well, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind for me is jobs.
Yeah.
You know, if businesses aren't doing well,
they
might start laying people off.
Right.
You could see higher unemployment.
Right.
It might be harder to find a job.
Right.
Or to get a raise. And even if you keep your job, you might have your hours cut back or your salary frozen.
So less money coming in.
Yeah, potentially.
And what about prices? Would we see those going up or down and slow down?
It's kind of counterintuitive, but prices could actually go up.
Oh, really?
In a slowdown.
Okay.
Especially if the Fed responds by cutting interest rates to try to stimulate the economy.
Okay.
Because remember, lower interest rates mean borrowing is cheaper.
Yeah.
So that could encourage people to spend more.
Yeah.
And that increased demand could actually drive prices up.
Wow.
Even in a slowing economy.
It's not as simple as slowdown equals lower prices.
Not necessarily, yeah.
Okay. Now, what about the opposite?
Okay.
What if the economy starts to, like, really heat up?
Yeah, if we see, like, a real boom, we might see a totally different set of effects.
Yeah.
Businesses would be expanding.
Yeah.
They'd be hiring more workers.
Okay.
And they might even be offering higher wages to attract talent.
Okay. Yeah.
Unemployment would go down.
Yeah.
People would be feeling more confident about their finances.
So a booming economy seems like a win-win. But is there like a potential downside?
I mean, the biggest risk in a rapidly growing economy is inflation.
Okay.
When demand outpaces supply, prices tend to rise.
Right.
And if the Fed doesn't raise interest rates quickly enough to kind of cool things down, inflation can get out of control.
Right.
Think back to the 1970s. The U.S. had that period of stagflation.
Right.
High inflation combined with slow economic growth.
Yeah.
It was a really tough time for a lot of people.
So it's like a catch-22.
Kind of.
Yeah. You want the economy to grow.
Right.
But you don't want it to grow too fast.
Exactly. You got to find that balance.
Yeah. So how do you strike that balance?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's the exact challenge that the Fed is facing right now. It's like they're trying to steer a ship through this narrow channel with these strong currents, pulling them in all these different directions.
Right.
There's no easy answer.
Yeah.
Even the experts disagree on the best way to do it.
So what's the bottom line for our listeners?
Well,
what can they do
to
navigate these kind of uncertain economic waters?
I think knowledge is your best compass in this situation.
Okay.
Stay informed about what's going on in the economy.
Right.
Both domestically and globally. Pay attention to those key economic indicators we talked about. Inflation, unemployment, GDP growth.
Right.
And keep an eye on what the Fed is saying and doing.
Yeah.
You know, their decisions about interest rates are going to have these ripple effects that impact everything. Mortgage rates, stock prices, the cost of borrowing for businesses.
Yeah, basically everything.
Pretty much, yeah. And, you know, the Korean news article that we were looking at today really highlights how interconnected all these different economies are.
Yeah.
What happens in the U.S. can have a huge impact on other markets and economies around the world and vice versa.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
So as you're following all these developments, think about how they might affect your own personal finances.
Okay.
Are you thinking about buying a house?
Right.
Buying a car?
Yeah.
Investing in the stock market?
Yeah.
Maybe even changing careers?
Yeah.
All of those decisions can be influenced by what's going on in the broader economy.
So it sounds like we're all kind of in the same boat here.
We are
navigating these choppy economic waters together.
Yeah, it can be a little rough out there.
Yeah. But even though there's a lot of uncertainty, there are also opportunities.
Absolutely.
And by staying informed and making smart choices, you can weather the storms and come out stronger on the other side.
You got it.
Yeah. Well, I think that brings us to the end of our deep dive.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We unpacked a lot of complex info today.
Yeah, we did.
But I hope you're leaving feeling a little more informed and empowered to deal with these uncertain economic times.
Absolutely. And if I can just leave you with one final thought, it's this. Stay curious.
Okay.
The economy is constantly changing,
Yeah.
and there's always more to learn.
Right.
By staying engaged
Yeah.
and staying informed,
Oh.
you'll be in a much better position to
Yeah.
make those smart financial decisions
Right. Yeah.
and achieve your goals.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
My pleasure.
Until next time, stay curious and keep learning.